Lightblade is by far the hardest Grandmaster Nightfall in the game because it requires you to be proficient at a skill that no other activity in Destiny requires. So today I am going to show you exactly how to use and master that skill to prevent Alakul from ever using his ranged arc blast attack, which is by far the biggest cause of wipes in this strike. More than that, I'm going to walk you through the entire fight step by step, showing you what enemies spawn where and when, where everyone should be standing for each section of the fight, what order you want to kill enemies in, and how to stay alive throughout this entire thing. Recommended weapon loadouts are simple, with all three players wanting Arbalist, an Arc Pulse like Horror's Least or Insidious, and an Arc Linear like Storm Chaser. For classes, Hunters want the usual Mobius Quiver, Trapper's Ambush, Vanishing Step, and Omnioculus. Titans want Thunder Crash with Heart of Inmost Light, Touch of Thunder, and Storm Grenades, and Warlocks actually want Well of Radiance with Aeons. I know that last one might be a bit surprising, but you'll understand why Well is actually incredible as we go through the strategy. But before we get started, I have to ask that you subscribe to... wait, actually, it's not fair of me to ask that of you yet. First, I'm going to give you what you came here for, after which you can subscribe if you found value in the video. So, starting the fight, you'll want all three players to of course hop down and find a platform on the upper balcony to stand at to bait the boss towards you, at which point you'll burn any burst supers that you have on him, like Tether and Thunder Crash, to get some free easy damage. And when I say free, I truly do mean free, because along with the boss spawn comes a ton of orbs that rain down into the middle that will charge your super back up to 100% from 0 that you can run across after getting your initial burst of damage off. And as you can see, I'm invisible while getting the orbs right now, which makes this a good time to mention that no, an Invis Hunter is not 100% required for this boss room, but I do highly recommend it because it just makes a lot of the jobs in this fight significantly easier and safer, but we'll talk about those more later in the video. In terms of enemies, the fight starts with a ton of Cursed Thrall, with 8 regular Thralls spawning once you drop the boss to about 75% HP. It's worth noting as well that Cursed Thrall are stuck on the ground floor of this arena, while the regular Thrall can jump up and reach you anywhere. Now, in killing these Thrall, we can perfectly demonstrate that skill I was talking about in the intro that will be the #1 enabler to your success in this strike, and I call it aggro management. This fight plays exactly like a traditional MMO raid boss fight, where you have a tank that holds that aggro of the boss so that your DPS can safely clear the other enemies in the arena. When it comes to holding Alakul's aggro, the center platform is your best friend. 99% of the time, if Alakul is aggroed to you, in melee range of you, and on a different elevation than you, he will move elevations to be able to hit you. The problem for him, though, is that he cannot begin his melee attack or his ranged attack while midair, making him quite harmless when he is jumping. Meaning, if you can force him to be airborne for the bulk of the fight, he is actually pretty docile. Now, I know you're thinking, okay, well, Mac, what about when other enemies are up in the fight? They will just kill you when you're in the middle, and we'll talk about how to avoid that later, and no, the answer is not just go invisible. But first, we need to talk about some contingencies while running this jump lock loop. Despite Destiny 2 being a flawless game with 0 bugs, Alakul still finds a way to circumvent this, and well, sometimes he doesn't behave as intended. So I wanted to touch on all of the things that can go wrong during this jump lock loop and how to stay safe during them. But before we do that, I do have to ask you to consider subscribing if you have learned something new in this video so far. Thank you so much. Contingencies 1 and 2 both have to do with Alakul randomly deciding to shoot at you during the jump lock instead of jumping to meet your elevation. These can happen for a myriad of reasons, such as losing aggro or just because he feels like it, but dying to these are completely avoidable. If you are above Alakul on the middle bowl while he is on the ground, the simple answer is to just back up to cut off his line of sight. If it's the other way around, where you are on the ground with Alakul up top, you want to slide into the bowl as well as move around it to the side at the same time. Now, to know if either of these are about to happen, all you have to do is stare at his empty hand. If he raises it, it means he is getting ready to shoot, and you need to adjust your positioning as such. Now, Contingency 3 and 4 both have to do with being killed while at a higher elevation than him from his melee attack. Occasionally, Alakul will bug out and sprint off of the middle platform instead of jumping off, canceling his jump animation and giving you less time to swap places with him. You can also have the occasional user error where you jump up to the middle platform too late as he lands on the ground and are still in his melee melee range. Either of these issues will cause him to melee the ground, and if you are too close to him, even at a higher elevation, you will still be killed. So in times where you think it might just be a little tight, take a step back on the middle plate to get yourself out of that range. Now, that's a lot, but mastering those techniques is your golden ticket to beating this Grandmaster Nightfall. But we still have a few additional addendums to add, as well as a whole lot of fight left to talk about. At 2/3 HP, Alakul will go immune, bring down a ton of orbs like he did at the beginning of the fight, and spawn Curse Thrall on the ground, as well as 2 Sword Knights and 1 Hive Guardian on the middle platform. The Hive Guardian will always spawn on the east side of the platform, assuming the Oryx and Akka statue is the north side of the room, and should always be killed first. Feel free to use your supers as well, since you have a bunch of orbs on the ground to let you get your super back for free. Also, a quick tip when it comes to crushing the Hive Ghost as well, the Hive Guardian likes to jump around from platform to platform, and you might notice that sometimes when you kill the Hive Guardian right after he jumps, his ghost is not where you killed him. If this ever happens, his ghost will always be in the location that he most previously jumped from. Again, Destiny 2 has no bugs. After dropping the Hive Guardian, you'll want to kill 1 of the Sword Knights and all of the Cursed Thrall, then prepare to bring the boss back out along with some Acolytes and 2 Barrier Knights, which will happen when you kill the second Sword Knight. If you have a Well of Radiance Warlock, my favorite strategy is to have the Well Warlock as well as another teammate set up behind this pillar on the edge of the upper balcony so that the boss cannot see them. With one player having their Arbalest out and another having their Storm Chaser, you'll first look right together to burn a Barrier Knight if one spawns there, and if it doesn't spawn, or after you kill it, you'll then look to your left to kill the other one. All while this is happening, your designated boss aggro holder will be holding the boss in a jump lock in the middle just like before. And I know you are probably thinking this is unsafe with all of the enemies alive on the upper balcony, but as long as your other 2 teammates are making quick work of them, which they should be able to with the boss distracted, the room can be cleaned up in a matter of seconds. And being an Invis Hunter is really helpful for this because should something go wrong, or if the knights aren't dying quickly enough, you always have a few Invis cooldowns to get you out of trouble. After everything is cleared, you'll hold the boss in a jump lock as you DPS him down to 50% HP, which will knock off his helmet and bring out 2 more Barrier Knights and a bunch more Acolytes. Here, I like to have both of my teammates set up by the south door, as there is usually a knight that comes out of that door or spawns near it. If you have a Thundercrash Titan or a Tether Hunter, now is the perfect time to use it to quickly super and finish one of the knights, then using linears to kill the other. Again, while your third player holds the boss aggro, which, by the way, for bonus safety points, the boss aggro holder can actually look around the upper balcony briefly during the boss's first jump to see exactly where the 2 Barrier Knights are. You can then use this information to know which side of the bowl you want to jump down to, that side being whichever side those 2 knights don't have a line of sight on. After those 2 Barrier Knights, you'll just drop the boss to 1/3, deal with the Hive Guardian, Sword Knights, and Thrall the exact same way you killed them all last time, and then head on to Phase 3, which will begin with 8 Thrall. Again, you'll just jump lock the boss while your 2 teammates nail all of the Thrall. After that, you'll DPS the boss down to 25% HP, where he will spawn 2 more Barrier Knights and some Acolytes, at which point it's a rinse and repeat of how you dealt with the first wave of Barrier Knights with the well behind the pillar. And if you have Titans and Hunters instead of a Warlock, you'll just have them roam around to each kill a knight with their burst supers. Once all that is dead, you'll have another wave of Thrall when the boss is at 10% HP, which you can either kill or ignore while you burn the rest of the boss. So time for a final recap along with some bonus tips. The jump lock is absolutely key, and as long as you look out for the few contingencies that can occur, it makes the arena 100% safe for everyone. When there are enemies alive while the boss is to be aggroed, it's the responsibility of the other 2 players to make sure they are burned down as fast as possible to keep the aggro holder safe. Supers are pretty key for burning down the barriers, so remember to always be picking up those orbs that spawn in the middle when the Hive Guardian comes out. And also remember that if you are in a pinch for super energy, you can just leave the boss untouched while you keep him in a jump lock so the team can passively charge supers before moving on to the next portion of the fight. And finally, the absolute safest place to be in this arena when there are no enemies alive is the middle bowl. If the boss is on the ground, you can sit right on top of it. If he's on the middle bowl, you can sit right below it. And if he is on the upper balcony, the bowl is big enough to block any of his attacks if you stand on the other side of it. If the boss pushes you, the best place to move to be safe from him is to a different elevation. He will map you from across the room all day long, but if you are directly below or above him with a floor in between the two of you, it's literally impossible for him to shoot you. Peregrine Took's philosophy is directly applicable to this boss fight. The closer you are to danger, the farther you are from harm. It's the last thing he'll expect. I'd appreciate it if you would consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you learned something new. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.